All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And this one, well, it's a bit of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
We're talking Kanye West and Bianca Censori.
Hmm.
And honestly, where do we even begin with this one? I mean,
A lot.
it's a lot, right? It's a lot to unpack. And, we're not just looking at headlines here. We're
Right.
going deeper.
Yeah, trying to get
The
to.
why, what's going on, what's the impact of all this?
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating, how quickly Wes has shifted from, celebrated artist to, well, a figure
Embroiled.
in promoting hate speech.
Yeah, and it is alarming.
Absolutely.
So I think for our listeners, it's helpful to kind of lay out a little bit of a timeline here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because things have escalated quickly, right? So West, he starts making these anti-Semitic comments, and it all culminates in his account being deactivated on X just last Sunday night.
Right.
But in between that, I mean, we saw him praising Hitler, identifying as a Nazi, even promoting swastika designs.
Yeah, and on top of all that, we can't forget those really disturbing comments recently denouncing the hashtag #MeToo movement and reigniting, just really problematic conversations about slavery.
Yeah.
This is not just outrageous behavior. I mean, these actions have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
They contribute to this normalization of hateful rhetoric, and
It's really frightening.
yeah, it's very concerning.
It's a stark contrast to the Kanye. Many of us knew just a few years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
But then right in the thick of all of this, we also have this strange incident involving his wife, Bianca Censori,
Right.
and a supposed cry for help post on X.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was...
Well, this is where the narrative gets really murky.
It does.
So a post appeared on an account claiming to be Censori,
Right.
and it was expressing concern for West,
Yeah.
asking for some kind of, divine intervention to soften his heart, guide his words.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you make of the language used in the post?
Well, to me, I mean, it reads as a very, religious, almost pleading.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting, too, because it goes so far as to, bless Israel and all the good Jewish people.
Yeah.
Which feels especially, I don't know, jarring.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Considering, I mean, we just talked about all of West's recent anti-Semitic remarks.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they're trying to soften the blow almost.
It does, doesn't it?
It almost reads like, I don't know, some kind of calculated attempt at damage control.
Yeah.
But especially considering the timing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is right on the heels of his X account being deactivated.
Right.
But then Censori's work denied the authenticity of the post,
Yeah.
claiming it's from a fake account. They're trying to get it removed.
So then if it wasn't Censori, who was it?
Right.
Why? I mean, what was the point?
Was it a misguided attempt to redirect the narrative? I mean, was it a prank? Something else altogether?
Yeah.
It's a tussle.
It is. It adds, I mean, another layer
Absolutely.
to an already very complex situation.
And while, Censori's attire at the Grammys, the near-nude outfit, that drew some attention.
Sure.
It pales in comparison to, the seriousness of
Yeah.
these other actions.
Right. And speaking of escalating seriousness,
Yeah.
we have to talk about the swastika incident.
Okay.
So first, there was this, puzzling Super Bowl ad
Right.
that aired in a few local markets.
Mm-hmm.
And then his website, which was previously selling various products,
Right.
suddenly has only one item left, a T-shirt with a swastika printed on it.
Yeah, and it gets even more disturbing.
Okay.
The Anti-Defamation League, or ADL,
Mhm.
they pointed out that the T-shirt was coded HO1 on the website.
What does that mean?
HO1 stands for Hail Hitler.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Chilling.
chilling. And, the ADL, they have a long history of fighting anti-Semitism, all forms of hate.
Right.
And they strongly condemned West's actions, emphasizing the chilling effect of normalizing such a hateful symbol.
Right.
I mean, the swastika, it's a symbol inextricably linked to the Nazi regime and the horrors of the Holocaust.
Absolutely.
It should never be taken lightly.
And it's such a blatant display.
Yeah.
And this ties into a bigger conversation, I think, about the impact and reach of these actions, right? So, for example, actor David Schwimmer,
Yeah.
he was very vocal in his criticism of West
Mhm.
and even pleaded with Elon Musk to remove him from X.
Yeah, he argued that, you're giving West a platform,
Right.
a megaphone to 32.7 million followers.
That's a lot of people.
It is. It's twice the number of Jewish people in the world.
Wow.
And he's saying, this is dangerous. It could potentially incite violence.
Right.
And his words, I mean, they highlight such a crucial point. The responsibility that comes with such a large platform and, the potential consequences of unchecked hate speech.
Yeah, and I mean, that brings us to the broader public reaction. I mean, organizations like the ADL, as we mentioned, they've been vocal in their condemnation. And many individuals have expressed, disgust, concern.
Right.
It's clear that West's actions have touched a nerve. And it's sparked a much-needed conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
About the dangers of normalizing hate speech.
And I think it's crucial for us to define what we even mean by hate speech.
Right.
I mean, it's not simply offensive language. Right. It's speech that attacks a person or a group on the basis of race, religion, ethnicity, national origin, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability.
Right.
It goes beyond simply causing offense. It really aims to incite harm, discrimination, and even violence.
It does, yeah.
And so when someone with, West's reach espouses these really hateful views,
right,
it goes beyond just hurt feelings.
Yeah.
It lends a dangerous legitimacy to those beliefs.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And it emboldens others to voice similar sentiments.
Right.
Creating a climate of fear and intolerance for the targeted groups.
Yeah.
And this can lead to real-world consequences.
Right.
Discrimination, harassment, even violence.
It's like handing someone a loudspeaker
Exactly.
to shout these hateful messages, right? And it amplifies that potential for harm.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a megaphone.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just about,
right,
one man's controversial opinions.
Right. This is about
the broader issue of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Which, like all forms of bigotry, I mean, it's rooted in ignorance and prejudice.
Right.
It thrives on this, misinformation and harmful stereotypes,
Yeah.
seeking to dehumanize entire groups of people based solely on their religion or ethnicity.
Right.
And, it's important to remember, words have power.
They do.
Especially when amplified by platforms like X.
Right.
We're witnessing a resurgence of hate speech in many corners of the world.
Yeah.
And it's crucial that we recognize the danger and actively combat it.
So where does this leave West and Censori?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. It's difficult to say, for sure.
We can't know what's truly happening behind closed doors.
Right.
The dynamics of their relationship or the influence they may have on each other.
Right.
Their private life is just that, private.
But what we can talk about is the impact of his very public actions.
Right.
And how does this fit into, I guess, the bigger picture of this rising hate speech?
It's a stark reminder that this isn't simply about one person's controversial opinions,
Right.
It's about this normalization of hate speech and the very real consequences that can follow.
Yeah.
And when someone with a massive platform like West's
Right.
espouses these views, it gives those beliefs a dangerous legitimacy.
It does.
It emboldens others to express similar sentiments,
Right.
creating a climate of fear and intolerance, potentially leading to discrimination, harassment, and even violence against targeted groups.
It's a chilling thought.
It is.
His reach is enormous.
Precisely. And we must remember that anti-Semitism, like all forms of bigotry, thrives on ignorance and prejudice.
Yeah.
It feeds on misinformation and these stereotypes,
Right.
seeking to dehumanize and marginalize entire groups of people based on their religion or ethnicity.
Right.
And, think about it this way.
Okay.
It's like giving a bullhorn to someone who's shouting hateful messages,
Okay.
amplifying their reach and potential for harm.
Right.
Those messages can reach millions of people.
Yeah.
And for some, they can be incredibly damaging and dangerous.
Yeah, it really emphasizes the fact that we all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers.
Absolutely.
To question what we hear and see.
Yeah.
And to challenge prejudice wherever we encounter it.
Yeah.
We can't just passively consume information.
I couldn't agree more. Education is key here.
It is.
We need to understand the historical context of hate speech.
Right.
Its devastating impact and the ways in which it can manifest in our society.
Mm.
We also need to develop the skills to recognize and counter misinformation and propaganda,
Right.
which often fuel these hateful ideologies.
And yet it can feel overwhelming, can't it?
It can.
The speed at which information, both accurate and inaccurate, spreads online, it's dizzying.
It's definitely a challenge, but it's not insurmountable.
Right.
We have to start by having, open and honest conversations about these issues.
Yeah.
Even when they're uncomfortable.
Right.
We need to listen to and learn from those who have been directly impacted by hate speech and discrimination.
Yeah.
And we need to hold individuals and platforms accountable for spreading hateful content.
Okay, so what can we as individuals do?
Right.
What are some practical steps we can take to combat this rising tide of hate?
Well, for starters, we can become more conscious consumers of information. That means being critical of what we see and hear online, checking sources, looking for evidence-based information.
Right.
Don't just believe everything you read on social media.
Right.
Do your own research, fact check, and be wary of, sensationalized headlines.
Right.
Or emotionally charged content that's designed to manipulate your opinion.
So be discerning about what you consume online.
Exactly.
Basically, don't just scroll past something that seems off.
If you see something that seems hateful or discriminatory, don't just scroll past it.
Right.
Report it to the platform. Call it out in the comments.
Yeah.
Or engage in constructive dialogue if you feel it's safe to do so.
Right.
Remember, silence can be interpreted as complicity.
It can.
And beyond that, supporting organizations working to combat hate speech and discrimination can make a big difference.
Right. Like groups like...
Yeah, groups like the ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, and many others are doing incredible work.
Yeah.
To monitor and expose hate groups, educate the public, and advocate for policies that promote tolerance and equality.
Right.
They need our support.
They do. And let's not forget the power of, simple kindness and respect.
Absolutely.
Treating people with empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
It could go a long way in creating a more inclusive and tolerant society.
Yeah, these small acts of kindness can ripple outward,
They can.
fostering a more positive and compassionate environment.
So back to West and Censori.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for their future?
Honestly, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Their future, both individually and as a couple, remains uncertain.
Right.
But one thing is clear.
Okay.
West's actions have had a profound impact,
Yeah.
and the consequences of his hateful rhetoric will continue to be felt long after the headlines fade.
Yeah, it really is a sobering reminder, I think, about
Yeah.
the power of words and the importance of, combating this hate speech wherever we encounter it.
Right, right.
This whole situation, it really makes you think about the weight of fame and influence, right?
Yeah.
When you have millions of people kind of hanging on your every word,
Right.
your actions carry a lot of weight,
They do, yeah.
don't they?
And the choices you make, especially when you have that level of influence,
Right.
can have a ripple effect far beyond your immediate circle. West's case is a stark illustration of how fame can be, a double-edged sword, amplifying both positive and negative messages.
It really raises the question,
Yeah.
can we even should we separate the art from the artist?
Right.
Can we still enjoy West's music knowing what we know about his beliefs and actions?
I think that's a question each individual has to wrestle with.
It is.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
And it often comes down to your personal values
Right.
and how you reconcile those with the actions of someone you may have previously admired.
Right. Yeah.
It's tough.
It's a conversation worth having, though.
It is.
Because it forces us to, I think, examine our own biases
Yeah.
and consider how we might be unintentionally supporting or condoning harmful behavior.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity for, I think, self-reflection and critical thinking.
Right.
We're challenged to look beyond our own perspectives
Yeah.
and consider the broader societal implications of our choices.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into the Kanye West and Bianca Censori situation, what's, the one key takeaway you want our listeners to hold on to?
I think the most crucial thing to remember is that hate speech is never acceptable.
Right.
It's not just about words. It's about the potential for those words
Yeah.
to incite violence and division.
Right.
And in an age of social media where information spreads like wildfire,
Right.
we all have a responsibility to be discerning consumers of content
Right.
and to actively challenge hate speech whenever and wherever we encounter it.
Absolutely. This isn't just about
Right.
West or Censori. It's about,
Yeah.
fostering a more inclusive and tolerant world
It is.
for everyone.
Everyone, yeah.
It's about recognizing that inherent humanity
Absolutely.
in all people, regardless of their beliefs or background.
Well said. And on that note,
Yeah.
I'd like to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked extensively about the role of social media platforms in amplifying hate speech.
Right.
But what about our individual roles?
Right.
How can we use our voices both online and offline,
Yeah.
to promote understanding, empathy, and respect.
Yeah, food for thought.
It is food for thought.
As we navigate this increasingly complex digital landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, stay curious and keep those critical thinking caps on. 10 2 days.